Hey, it's Shane with GotRom.com. I want to talk about SI, sacroiliac joint pain, caused by hip impingement. Now, I've talked about this in another video where I basically said that if you are having SI joint pains and you have hip impingement, femoral acetabular impingement, some stuckness with your hips, they're not moving as well as they could. If this joint is not moving as well as it could, often the little brother upstream, the SI joint, starts to move more than it should and starts to get irritated and pissed off at you. So the long-term solution is make sure that your hips are moving as well as they could and they have enough stability and motor control for whatever sport you're doing, running, soccer, whatever. So they have to have adequate range of motion and adequate control and stability. But if your SI joint is a little pissed off at you, I'm going to show you a couple exercises with lacrosse balls and another tool that help just calm down the low back, calm down the SI joint. So stay tuned. What you're going to do is you're going to take 2 lacrosse balls and 1 yoga block or small step. And we're going to try to put these lacrosse balls just above your SI joint, your kind of low back area. And what we're going to try to do is get some side angle pressure. So we're not trying to press straight in necessarily, a little bit of that. We're trying to get kind of an oblique sideways pressure on these kind of low back muscles. It's a tricky area to massage, but I'm going to show you how. Take your yoga block, put it on the ground, lay on your back with your feet up on a stool and slide it underneath your low back kind of SI joint area. This is your sacrum, this is your low back. It needs to be a little bit more on your sacrum. Then you're going to take your 2 lacrosse balls, put them on that low part of your back, neither on kind of like the bony pelvis nor up in the middle of your back, kind of low back. You can kind of play around until you find just the area that you need. And then here's the magic sauce. You're going to slightly turn to the side so the lacrosse balls are pressing into your back at a slight angle, and then breathe and become dead weight. This takes a little fine tuning, a little bit of mindfulness, but with your hips turned to the side, it's a better angle. And then you just have to breathe, relax, make little subtle motions, and find a way of sort of trigger point style press, sink and release. Make sure that you're not excessively arching your low back if you're sensitive to that. You can keep your back a little bit more neutral, and then just try to pin down what feels like a taut, overly tight muscle, and then breathe and relax and let it sink in. So that's the first exercise. You can twist your hips to the other side, see what that side feels like. You can use your hands to kind of hold the balls for stability. Gives you a little sense of a little more control in this exercise. Breathe and relax. Notice if one side versus the other is more hypertonic or tight, and try to normalize your low back muscles in terms of their softness or their suppleness over time. The next exercise to get your SI joint to relax and calm down a little bit is we're going to work on the muscles that attach right in that area, namely your QL muscles, your quadratus lumborum, and whatever associated fascia and other connective tissue is kind of in there. Doesn't matter too much what it's called, just your low back muscles. So we use 2 lacrosse balls, which are a little bigger in diameter, but now if we get in there with something a little bit more pinpoint, sometimes you can get a bigger release and get a little bit more SI joint pain relief from this. So you're going to take the Body Back Buddy tool, which you can find on Amazon and other stores. Specifically this blue S-shaped one. There's other ones that are just kind of like a stick and a hook, and I haven't found them quite as helpful as this for a couple reasons. One, namely that this other end you can use to hook up a band to, which makes this exercise doubly as effective, and I have another video on YouTube about that I'll link to. But if you have this Body Back Buddy S-shaped stick, you're going to try to hook it into the side of your low back with that angle of pressure. I'm not hooking it in and pulling in this direction where it's just pressing straight into my low back like that. That's often how people massage you. They just kind of press straight into your low back, which sort of irritates the facet joints and just ain't that comfortable. So if we get this side angle of pressure where it's pressing sideways into my back, that's a little bit more effective. How you do that is you lay on the ground, you hook this underneath, slightly turn to the side where my lower body is turned to the side and my upper body is sort of staying flat on the ground. And then I hook this into the side of my QL and I reach up and kind of pull in this direction. I have to arch my back a little bit, but only to a degree that's comfortable for me. And you have to kind of experiment with going a little bit lower down your QL, a little bit higher up towards your ribs. You're never pressing on your ribs. You're never pressing on your spine. You're never pressing on bones at all. You're always pressing on soft tissue of your low back muscles slightly on the side. So if you're just slow and mindful, you can tell what's a muscle, what's a bone, what's sort of no man's land. And with a little bit of practice and experience, this can feel really, really good for releasing your low back muscles. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but you're pulling in this direction, breathing, becoming dead weight, and working on the trigger points in the spine over time. So those are 2 ways of working on your low back soft tissue to get an irritable, annoyed SI, sacroiliac joint, calm down a little bit. But as I said in the beginning of the video, the root cause, if you're someone who's got these immobile hips, is more hip mobility or symmetrical hip mobility, or in some cases, hip stability. If you're a hypermobile person, someone whose hips are wobbling around too much, you might need to do a little bit of hip stability training so that your hip is not wonking around and your SI joint, your low back, is also wobbling around too much. So is it hip mobility for you? You gotta assess your own situation, or hip stability. Work on those primarily, but also try out those exercises for the low back, for the SI joint, and I hope you enjoy. Yeah.